What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to talk about Social Security and tariffs. Do tariffs have an impact on Social Security? So that's what I want to focus on because they do. Tariffs will have an impact on people receiving Social Security benefits. And so I'm going to show you what I mean in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let's go to this infographic here. And I want to show you, when it comes to tariffs, how this will impact Social Security. So let's talk about the economy first when it comes to tariffs. So higher prices. So we've heard about this. So we see tariffs. That means that the person who is receiving, so the company who is receiving these products from other countries, they are going to pay a price for that. Okay, so they're going to pay this tariff, a tax. That money will go to the federal government. That is how tariffs work. So if I want a product, let's say I have a company, and I'm selling shoes, but my shoes are made in another country. When those shoes come to the border, to the port, I have to pay a tariff. So let's say it's 25%. I have to pay that 25% to the federal government. Now, it's up to me as the owner of this company to decide if I'm going to pass that cost on to the consumer. Now, if I want to make profit and continue to make profits, then I'm probably going to pass that on to the consumer. Now, I might not do that right away. I might gradually pass that cost on to the consumer. But ultimately, if I'm in a business to make profit, I'm going to try to make as much profit as I can. And if I'm losing 25%, at some point, I'm going to pass that cost on to the consumer. So higher prices. That is what we're going to see when it comes to tariffs. And there's no way around it. You hear these different people out here, politicians out here saying, no, well, it's not going to raise prices and companies will just, they'll just eat the cost and all this. That's not true. Okay. When it comes down to it, eventually they're going to find a way. Companies will find a way. If they don't do it right up front, they're going to find a way to pass that cost on to the consumer because that just means more money for them. Okay. So that's number one. Now, when we're looking at tariffs, this can also reduce consumer spending because if products cost more, you might not buy those products anymore because they cost more. And so there's certain necessities, food and things like that. Yes, we need to buy food, but let's say it's a big screen TV, different electronics, things like that. You might choose not to buy those products. And if you choose not to buy those products, you say, you know what? I have a TV and I want to buy a new TV. The Super Bowl is right around the corner. I want to buy a new TV for the Super Bowl, but I can't afford it. It's too expensive. So I'm just going to keep the same TV that I have. And so that is going to slow down consumer spending. Now, slowing down consumer spending will impact our economy, right? Because you have less people purchasing products, which means that these companies that are selling these products, they're not going to be selling as many, which means that ultimately they could start laying people off. Okay, so this impacts businesses. And if businesses start laying people off, that is a problem in itself. Our economy is slowing down. Now, how does this impact people receiving Social Security benefits? Okay, so first off, Social Security is funded. So it's funded through FICA. The trust funds and FICA, that is how Social Security is funded. And I've stated this before, the 6.2%, which they have right here, the employees contribute, and then 6.2% the employer contributes. And that goes up to $176,100. So any money that you make over that, so let's say you're receiving a salary and you're over that $176,100, you no longer have to contribute to FICA for that portion. Okay, so if it's $1 more, that dollar you don't have to contribute to FICA. But anything under that $176,100, you're contributing to FICA. Okay, now, and some politicians have said, look, we need to raise that. We need to raise that cap so that $176,100, we can collect more revenue if we raise that cap. But they haven't, Congress hasn't gotten together and reformed Social Security yet. But that's what we're looking at right now when it comes to Social Security. That's how money is collected. So now think about it this way. If we have higher tariffs and we have consumers saying, we're not going to buy products the way we were buying them before because they're too expensive, well, guess what? That slows our economy down, which could result in layoffs. And if we lay people off, that means you have less people in the workforce, less people contributing that 6.2%. And you might have companies that will go under as a result of this as well, which means everyone gets laid off. So that's even more, that's even less money going into FICA. And then remember, the company also contributes 6.2%. So if the company is no longer there, they're not contributing that 6.2% per employee. And then you don't have the employee contributing 6.2%. So you see there's less money going through FICA. FICA, it's a pay-as-you-go system. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. So FICA right now is paying out people who are receiving benefits right now. Okay, so people who are working, they're contributing to FICA. That money is going to pay out benefits, and it's not enough to cover 100%, and so that's why they're drawing on the trust funds. So if we see tariffs the way we think we're going to see it, and the way that economists have been telling us this is what's going to happen, we're going to see higher prices, we're going to see a situation where this will impact Social Security. It's going to impact it because it means you're going to have to pull out more from the trust funds because you're going to have less people in the workforce as a result of a slower economy. Now, that's one scenario, and that's the likely scenario that we've been hearing about. However, there is another scenario, and this might take time. This is not something that would happen overnight. You have some economists and some politicians that are saying tariffs are good. They're good because they're going to lead to more U.S. manufacturing. So we'll bring these businesses back to the U.S. You hear that. So that would mean more employee, more people working, more people contributing to FICA. Okay, now, this is not something that would happen overnight. We know that. Why? Because they have to build these plants, these manufacturing plants, and they have to be able to bring these companies back to the U.S. And some companies will be a little skeptical about building a manufacturing plant. And so let's say I have that same company, a shoe company, right? And I'm buying shoes from overseas, and now I have to pay the tariff. And then I start thinking, well, you know what? Maybe it would be better if I had a manufacturing plant in the U.S. I could start making the shoes in the U.S. But that would take time and a huge investment, because now before I didn't have to worry about plants. I didn't have to worry about employees or anything like that, employees that are manufacturing, building, making these shoes. All I need to do is purchase a product from another country. But now I'm going to have to do that. The logistics of building a plant, spending a lot of money, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in some certain situations, building this plant, and then being able to sell the shoes in the U.S. And you have to pay your employees. So in certain countries, they're not paying, those employees aren't getting high wages. But if I'm doing it in the U.S., there's certain guidelines that I need to abide by. There's certain levels where I need to pay my employees. So I can't just say, okay, well, you're only going to get $10 an hour. In certain situations, I might not be able to pay them $10 an hour. And then people might not want to take that job at $10 an hour. They'll say, well, I don't want to work in a manufacturing plant for $10 an hour. And so there's going to be that struggle where I might have to pay them $20 an hour. So if I'm paying them $20 an hour, I have to pass that cost on to the consumer eventually, because if they're making the shoes, and let's say these shoes before, if I'm purchasing the shoes from another country, I might still be better off than if I have a plant in the U.S., because those shoes still might be more expensive just because of labor costs. And then on top of that, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. What if I spend millions and millions of dollars to build a plant in the U.S., and then we start seeing these tariffs go away, and now I have this big plant in the U.S., I have labor costs, but I can buy shoes in another country and sell them in the U.S. for cheaper as a result of tariffs going away. And so this is, it's going to be tricky for a lot of companies and how they manage this. But some companies might just say, you know what, we're just going to continue paying the tariffs until they go away and hope that they go away. And when we're looking at these major corporations, they have the money to have influence over politicians to get them to do certain things that they want them to do. And so getting back to our illustration here, this is one scenario that we could see. We could see increased manufacturing in the U.S., which would help Social Security. It would help the trust funds. But the reality is right now, if we see stagnant wages, this is another thing. If we see stagnant wages, so lower wage growth limits the taxability income base. So if we don't see this, if we see the opposite scenario where we don't see a lot of these companies building these manufacturing plants in the U.S., and we see the economy slowing down, ultimately that is going to have a real negative impact on people receiving Social Security benefits. It's going to have a negative impact on Social Security. The trust funds will deplete much sooner, and people will see that cut of about 23%. So I just wanted to show you that. I want to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.